1776, the rich man's revolution. Freedom for who? July 4th, 1776. Fireworks, parades, celebration. They taught you the American Revolution was about freedom, liberty, equality, the brave colonists rising up against tyranny. But here's what they didn't tell you. The revolution wasn't for everyone. Not for the enslaved, not for women, not for Native Americans, not even for poor white people. The American Revolution was a rich man's war fought by poor men to protect wealthy men's profits. This is 1776, the year they sold you a beautiful lie. They taught you it was about taxes. No taxation without representation. But here's the truth. American colonists paid less in taxes than British citizens in England. The average colonist paid about 1 shilling per year. A British citizen? 26 shillings. So what was the real reason? Control. The British were starting to restrict westward expansion to honor treaties with Native Americans. They were making noises about abolishing slavery. And the colonial elite, the wealthy landowners, the slave owners, the merchants, saw their fortunes threatened. George Washington wasn't fighting for your freedom. He was fighting to keep his 300 enslaved people and expand his land empire into native territory. Let's talk about the Founding Fathers. Thomas Jefferson inherited 5,000 acres and 52 enslaved people before he was even an adult. George Washington, one of the richest men in America, owned vast plantations. John Hancock, smuggler and merchant worth millions in today's dollars. Benjamin Franklin, successful printer and businessman. These weren't common men fighting oppression. These were the colonial 1%ers protecting their wealth. The average annual income in the colonies? About 20 pounds. George Washington's annual income? Over 1,000 pounds. 50 times more. The revolution wasn't poor people demanding rights. It was rich people demanding the right to get richer without British interference. So who actually fought the war? Not the Founding Fathers. They commanded from safety. The actual soldiers? Poor white farmers, indentured servants, free black men promised freedom if they fought, Native Americans forced to choose sides, teenagers, boys as young as 14. The Continental Army was desperate. They'd take anyone. And what did these poor soldiers get? Starvation, disease, brutal winters like Valley Forge, where 2,500 men died. Meanwhile, George Washington slept in mansions requisitioned from loyalists. The rich stayed rich. The poor died for promises that were never kept. Before we continue, if you're learning things they never taught you in school, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that button, because what comes next will completely change how you see American independence. Don't miss the rest. Subscribe now. Here's something they definitely don't teach. Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence included a paragraph condemning slavery and blaming King George for the slave trade. Sounds progressive, right? Wrong. Southern slave owners and northern slave traders forced him to delete it, not because they opposed slavery, but because Jefferson was blaming Britain for something Americans were profiting from massively. The final declaration kept all men are created equal while protecting the institution of slavery. They removed the one paragraph that might have actually meant something. The hypocrisy was built into the founding document itself. All men are created equal. What about women? Abigail Adams, John Adams' wife, literally wrote to him, "Remember the ladies." She begged him to give women legal protections in the new nation. His response? He laughed, called it saucy. Women couldn't vote, couldn't own property if married, couldn't sign contracts, couldn't serve on juries. A married woman was legally her husband's property, same as his horse. The revolution changed nothing for half the population. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, only if you had a penis, and were white, and owned property. The British offered freedom to enslaved people who fought for them. Thousands escaped and joined the British Army. The Americans? They mostly refused to arm enslaved people until they got desperate. Eventually, about 5,000 black men fought for American independence, promised freedom in return. Some got it, many didn't. After the war, George Washington demanded the British return stolen property, meaning the enslaved people who'd escaped to freedom. The British refused and evacuated 3,000 formerly enslaved people to Canada and Britain. Meanwhile, the Constitution protected slavery. The Fugitive Slave Clause required free states to return escaped enslaved people. The Revolution didn't end slavery, it enshrined it. Of the first 12 U.S. presidents, 8 owned enslaved people, including while in office. So who actually won the revolution? The same people who started it, the wealthy landowners. After independence, they wrote state constitutions that required property ownership to vote. In 1776 America, only 6% of the population could vote. 6%. Property requirements, gender requirements, race requirements. The democracy they created was an oligarchy, ruled by the wealthy, and they got richer. George Washington's net worth increased after the Revolution. Thomas Jefferson expanded his plantations. The merchants faced no British trade restrictions. The land speculators pushed west onto native land. The revolution was never about freedom for all. It was about freedom for the few to exploit the many without British interference. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, the most beautiful lie ever written. Equal while owning 600 enslaved people? Equal while denying women basic rights? Equal while calling Native Americans savages? Equal while requiring property to vote? The American Revolution created a nation built on contradiction, the promise of equality with the reality of oppression. And we're still living with that contradiction today. Every argument about what the founders intended ignores that the founders intended freedom for themselves and oppression for everyone else. That's not patriotism to celebrate. That's history to learn from. This is forgotten chapters of history. They taught you 1776 was about freedom. The truth? It was about wealthy men protecting their wealth. Next episode, the Constitution. They call it the greatest document ever written, but it protected slavery, denied rights to most Americans, and created a system designed to keep power in the hands of the few. Episode 7 reveals what they don't teach in civics class. Subscribe now, like this video, comment, should we still celebrate July 4th knowing the real history? Share this truth, because understanding who the revolution actually served is the first step to understanding who America actually serves today. Episode 7 drops soon.